If you're like most golfers, you'll find that getting the sequence right in the golf swing can be quite challenging. So what I want to do today is to actually give you some different drills to start to build up the feeling. So rather than going with full swing and let's talk about what the order of movement is with, you know, hips and shoulders and arms and hands, and sort of describe it as its official term as kinematic sequence, that's all a bit much. So let's start a little bit slower and a little bit more simple as well. First of all, we don't need a golf club. The first thing we're going to do is if I just stand here, let my arms hang, and start to just twist my hips in both directions. So it's the twisting of my hips that's causing my upper body to turn. So I'm not trying to turn my upper body, my hip movement is twisting my upper body. Because my upper body's turning, it's causing my arms to swing around beside me. Now as I'm creating this motion, my hips will turn, and if you start to watch the sequence, my hips will turn, my upper body will follow, and then my arms follow my upper body. When I get to a certain point, my hip movement will slow down. That allows my upper body to continue, and then my arms to catch up and then pass my upper body and my hips. And I'm going to continue that motion in both directions. So if I do that a few times, you can see my hips are turning, and that's causing the rest of the motion to go along. So my arms are just literally just hanging, they're floppy and they're being moved. But you'll see that there is a change of speed the entire time. So if you like, my hips are accelerating, now they're decelerating, and allows my arms to catch up. It all happens so quickly I can't talk it at the same time. So I've got this acceleration of the hips, they'll slow. Now I can feel that motion. The other thing I'm also aware of is what's happening at my feet. So I can feel subtle little changes in pressure on my feet as I go back and through. So the direction that I'm turning in, I can feel pressure shifting to that foot. Now I've got this chain of movement going from the ground through my hips and my upper body. So I'm getting this nice free motion going. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start to introduce say almost like a secondary lever, but we're going to use a rope. Now you may have seen this drill with on YouTube with Dr. Kwan, and there's another one I'm going to show you which is one Ben Hogan showed. So they're available out there, but we're sort of looking at how these things all fit in together because they're highly valuable for practice. So a couple of checkpoints when we're doing this drill, all I'm going to do is allow this rope to move around my belt line. Now my arms start off in front of my body. When I move back and through, I'm going to do the same order of movement or same type of movement that I just did with the previous swing where my arms are floppy. My arms will move very subtly from side to side. Now I'm sequencing in this little movement with my arms, but I've also got to play with the movement of the rope as well. So as I go back and through, oh, by the way, all my hands are doing in this drill is holding the rope, so I'm not actually using my hands at all. We'll get to what the wrists do in a moment when we start doing it with the golf club. So from here, I'm just letting my hips twist. Now I'm waiting, so my hips are turning, slowing, and that'll allow my upper body to twist a little bit. That rotation with my upper body is causing the rope to swing. Now it's swinging with sufficient speed that it stays horizontal as it's going back and through. But again, the order of movement is exactly the same as when my arms are floppy. It's from my feet, through my hips, through my upper body, and then I've got a very, very slight movement here. Now if I suddenly start using my arms, that rope moves fast, it whips me, so I'm only going to demonstrate that once because it hurts. So the hands are not doing anything in this motion here. So that's a really good way to start to get the feel of that motion. So that when I'm doing it, I'm just allowing the movement to complete, and then I change direction. So allow the movement to complete and change direction, which is actually what I was doing with the rope as well. Things get a little bit more complicated when I start to introduce the golf club, because all of a sudden I've got very much a secondary lever. If I create exactly that same movement just backwards and forwards to begin with, now as I'm creating that motion, the club is starting to move around my wrists. So if we simplify the motion a little bit I'll actually keep my upper arms against my side to begin with. So it's sort of like I'm securing from shoulder to elbow, and I'm just creating this little motion here. So I'm still going from my hands, but now the club's moving around my wrist. Now my hands are not creating that motion. It's the swinging weight of the club head and the fact that the club head's moving faster than my arms that causes my wrist to hinge. The rotation causes the wrist to unhinge, and of course on the other side, the club's moving faster than my arms again, so then the club passes my hand. So all of this hinging, unhinging, and rehinging is really just my arms and the club moving at different speeds. So now if I start to extend the range of the motion, and it doesn't matter whether I'm swinging at the ground for the moment or even swinging above the ground, but now if I create that same movement, I'm still swinging back, my hips are slowing, and then my upper body will continue a bit, then my arms will continue and the club will go. So as I'm going back, I've got this order of movement in the backswing, in the downswing, same thing. So you can see, particularly if we're focusing on what's happening down through impact, my hips will be slowing, upper body and arms and club catch up and pass. So I'm not doing that with my hands and arms, I'm allowing the transfer of momentum to achieve that for me. In fact, the entire objective here is to learn what that transfer of momentum is. So now what I need to do is I need to time it so that the club's actually going to strike the ground where I want it to. So now if I'm taking my golf posture and I'm creating that same motion, so I'm a long way from full speed, but I can have that club brush the ground as I'm going back and through. So it feels like, again, I'm allowing this whole movement sequence to take care of the club meeting the ground where I want it to. If I put a ball there, and this is the challenge, because as soon as there's a ball there, your attention's taken by the ball. So now you become a bit more ball focused, and it's very easy to think, I just need to make contact with the ball. So you're more intent on hitting the ball rather than making the motion. So if I just feel like I'm making the motion, not much speed in the motion, and so I've got that club swinging quite freely, again a long way from full pace, but I've struck the ball quite nicely there, and so I've got the satisfaction of hitting it well, but also again that feeling of creating that motion. You can continue to do that either when you're doing that motion, do it with a lot of shots with say a short club, because that'll give you a bit more loft. I did that with a 7-iron. Ball didn't fly too high, but there wasn't much club head speed, so it's not going to fly high. But I've still got the satisfaction of knowing that I've sequenced the movement well to strike the ball well. When you're doing this, go from the simplest drills, which was just the arms floppy, maybe use a rope, or if you don't have a rope, just go with a golf club, but constantly practice this motion and you'll find that you'll get this rhythmic feel, almost dance-like when you're moving, and you'll find that the sequence actually becomes very, very easy and very repeatable.